Hi everyone, welcome to the Adapt series where we have conversations on business continuity during these troubled times. I'm your host Sanjana Balaraman, and today I'm going to be talking to Prasad Ramakrishnan, the Chief Information Officer at Freshworks. Prasad and I are going to be discussing how you can work to keep your data secure while still implementing a remote workforce. I learned a lot from my conversation with him, and I'm sure that you will as well. Let's dive in. Hi, Prasad. How are you doing?
Pretty good, Sanjana. How are you? How are you managing through this crazy times that we are in?
I'm okay. I mean, living at home it has advantages and disadvantages, obviously. But yeah, powering through. What about
Stay
you?
safe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. What about you? You're based in California, right?
right. And so the situation is different between the various countries. So here, at least, we do have some of the shipping facilities and grocery outlets still available. So we do have the ability to move around. I know the situation in India where you're located is a little different, right?
Yeah.
So stay safe, Sanjana.
Thank you. I think just to kick the conversation off, I think one of the interesting parts of what's been happening so far is a lot of people are learning to truly appreciate their IT teams more than anything. I've had a couple of people tell me that I'm going to buy my IT guy like a box full of cupcakes when I'm done. So how hectic has it been for you from that side of things? Uh, for example, I know that virtual onboarding is new for several organizations, including Freshworks, from what I understand. Would you be able to give us a little insight on how difficult the IT side of things for that is?
Yeah, and I'll take both questions here,
Okay.
Sanjana. So you're absolutely right. The burden on the IT team to keep the business running has been, and I wouldn't use the word burden. The responsibility of IT to keep the business running in such a situation is extremely high. Um, Part of the reason is IT provides the technical and the physical infrastructure that is being used, the computing infrastructure that's being used by all the employees, and ensuring that employees have what they need to run their day-to-day operations is the responsibility of IT, right? So be it the hardware or the business applications, irrespective of whether the person is working from home or working from the office, it's our responsibility to make sure that the employee stays productive. And the new challenges are faced when people are working from home, which normally would not be there when you're working from the office. In the office, you take the network for granted, but at home, for example, the network may not be reliable in certain parts of the world, right? So you end up with new challenges. And let's say you spill coffee on your laptop. In the office, you can actually bring it to the IT person, and we can give you a spare laptop while we repair your laptop. But you cannot do that. So we have come up with creative ways by which we can still continue to support our employee base. But it's not been easy. Hats off to all our employees for being patient through the process and understanding that it's a new normal, and hats off to the IT team for stepping up. The second part of your question related to onboarding. While it's true that not many companies are hiring people at this time, right? Most companies have said, hey, let's take a step back and figure out how many people do we really need to hire. The reality is, you still have people joining. Just at Freshworks in the last 4 weeks that we've been in a work from home mode, we have onboarded close to 100 plus employees in different parts of the world, right? And in a normal onboarding scenario, what happens is we try to onboard employees all on the same day in a week, right? So Monday is our onboarding day, and we call it as the batch of the 23rd of March, the batch of 30th of March, and so on. And usually there'll be around 30-40 people that we onboard at a time. In the last month, we have onboarded almost to the same scale, around 20-25 employees on a weekly basis, right?
Wow.
With normal onboarding, we bring everybody into a conference room, take care of their official paperwork, which HR takes care of in terms of their employment contract and verification of their eligibility for employment. And then we hand them a laptop. and then provision them access to the business applications that they need and the IT services that they need. After which it goes off to the independent manager, the individual's manager, I should say, to take care of the further onboarding into the team and so on. So with the pretty much the whole world being in a work from home mode, we have been able to still continue to do this. And the way we have gone about doing it is, again, more region based. In countries where we have had the shipping facilities still being open, example in the US, Europe, Australia, FedEx and UPS and the local shipping facilities are still open. We actually have laptops pre-staged by the IT staff. We build a laptop according. So if Sanjana is joining the team, we would create an image of whatever machine that is needed, and then create your profile on that machine, install all the required security products that we need to install, because at the end of the day, employee security, company IP security, and our customer data security is extremely critical to us. So we don't do anything that will compromise that, right? So we will create an image, do it very similar to the way we would have done it if the person was getting onboarded in the office, and then ship the laptop over to that person, to that person's residence. This is specifically for the people that are getting onboarded in these countries. India, which is one of the countries where we have a large operation, the shipping facilities have stopped. In the sense, the government of India has pretty much put a clamp saying only essential services can be shipped, right? So, and laptops are not considered as essential services. You cannot eat the laptop, right? So, that has made life a little bit more interesting. So what we have done there is we have enabled employees to come on board by asking them to use their personal laptop. So pretty much everybody that's joining, given that we are a technology company, almost everybody that's joining us has either a desktop or a laptop at home. We created what is called as a virtual desktop environment within our server farm, again, completely on the cloud, right? We leveraged either Microsoft or Azure, or Amazon. We created a virtual desktop environment. So when Sanjana logs in or when Prasad logs in, there is almost a virtual session that is created there. And it's almost a virtual desktop, which will act as though you're using one of our company issued laptops, right? HR and the legal team and the other paperwork that needs to be done, they came up with their own BCP plan, in which they said, instead of onboarding employees and taking care of their paperwork physically with all of us being in a conference room, they did that through creative Zoom sessions, where they would onboard the employees, walk them through the paperwork, answer any questions they have regarding their health insurance and their retirement savings and all of that. So that's how we enabled virtual onboarding.
Perfect. I think my next question would be looking at the flip side of this. I mean, regardless of what's going on in the world, invariably people leave companies. And sometimes the process of offboarding can be as complicated as the process of onboarding. So what is could you give us a little more insight on the IT side of things there? Is it somehow a little bit more complicated than onboarding, especially when you're talking about situations like in India where they've stopped shipping of things altogether?
Yeah, you hit upon an extremely critical point, Sanjana. While onboarding is an extremely critical aspect of the employee experience, offboarding is an equally important, if not more important, right? Because this is where there's an employee who had access to company IP, who had access to possible customer data, and had access to company assets, which need to be secured and made sure that all of that is being taken possession of by the company, right? So what we did is kind of a similar model, right? In countries where shipping was available. So for one, we have a standard operating procedure for offboarding, which is basically when a person leaves the business on the day or the last day of their employment, we do turn off all access to all company related assets, right? Where we basically lock everything down. And we are a SaaS first company. We are a cloud first company, right? So it is not like there is anything which is specific that's running in the person's laptop, right? So being a SaaS first company and a cloud first company, we have the ability to turn on and turn off the switch remotely, right? So that's done as step number one, irrespective of whichever country you are in. In countries where shipping is available, we tell the employee by giving them a FedEx label or a UPS label and tell them, please use this label go to the nearest UPS store or the FedEx store, and then use this label to ship it back to our facilities, either to our office if our office is open, or to the home of the IT engineer who takes possession of that laptop. In countries where shipping is not available, like India, where shipping is now being paused, what we have done is we have handled it through more legal paperwork, right? One is securing the laptop and making sure that the employee, after he has departed, he or she has departed, doesn't have access to company assets and confidential information. We have the ability to remotely do that. We also have technology using which we can remotely completely wipe the person's laptop. So we use a combination of technologies from Microsoft as well as from a company called Jamf, using which we can do a remote wipe of the person's laptop. And then ask the person to hold on to their laptop. We tell them, please acknowledge that you are holding on to our company assets and our company laptop. And we ask that you do not use this for any more company related activities, for any of your personal related activities, right?
Okay.
And then when the shipping becomes available, they can come and either drop it off with the shipping company or come to our office and drop it off, right?
So,
And
so
we
in
do
that
have
case, in that case, you go more of a legal route.
we go more of a legal route, and we do have tools which can audit and find out if the employee, let's say a person separated from the company on the 10th of April and did some activity in their laptop on, say, the 11th or the 15th of April. There are audit logs that we can run, which will tell us what activities they have done. And since we have a legal kind of an agreement with the employee saying that they will not be doing any of these things, we have a legal recourse as well to say, why did you do this, right? Depending on the nature of what they did.
So, out of curiosity, roughly how many people do you think we've offboarded in this time?
I would say less than 10. Less than 10. And this is people who had already turned in their resignation and had their separation date end of March or the beginning of April.
Yeah.
So throughout the world, I would say it's less than 10.
I think you touched upon this slightly in your earlier answer, but regarding the question of data security, especially, obviously we're a cloud-first company. So my question is more along the lines of, what do you think the advantages of being a cloud-first company are in this particular area, especially regarding when you're considering everyone is working from home, they're accessing, you don't know if the networks are secure or not. How are we dealing with that as a
Yeah. So I think there are different aspects of advantages as it relates to being a cloud-first organization, right? What enabled Freshworks to rapidly move from a business as usual model, which is where people were coming into the office, to we instituted what we call as an optional work from home, where you can choose to work from home if you don't feel comfortable, or if you have incidents which are close to your house where there is a person who's likely to be affected by corona or COVID, and then we went into a mandatory work from home. So what really enabled us to deploy a full BCP plan here was the fact that we are a cloud first company, because there was nothing that was running within our data centers, right? So if you actually come into our company and come into our network, come into our data center in our offices, what you will see is a set of switches which enables you to connect to the internet. That's all we have in our data center, right? Which means if a person has a network connection from wherever they are working, they can continue to do the work that they need to do, right? Now, having said this, there are certain functions which have access to our customer data or to the production environment or to sensitive data, where the access, one is the transport layer of access that we talk about, as well as the actual endpoint that they access, needs to be secured a little bit more, right? Because you want to make sure that there is no snooping of the traffic happening from bad actors, so that none of the customer information or employee information gets compromised. So we have implemented VPN servers, which is a virtual private network servers. And what we did was, in anticipation of this, we increased the capacity of our VPN servers and came up with backups to our VPN servers, so that usually we do have around 5 or 10% of our employees working from home, more to take care of personal errands or to go to the hospital or to take their kid to the hospital or to take care of some
Yeah.
personal work.
Yeah.
We do have a section of our people working from home all the time, right?
Yeah.
But here you have the scale, which is where 100% of the employees are working from home. So from a capacity planning perspective, we needed to make sure that we enhance the capacity of our VPN servers. And given that we need a failover, right, for cases where the VPN is maxed out, we also enabled a few VDI servers, which is virtual desktop interface servers. This enables us to have the employee from home log into a virtual desktop interface, and it is a secured connection to the VDI. And from the VDI connection is where the connection to our production assets happen. Now, given that we are a cloud-first company and we were a born in the cloud company, in terms of securing access to a production environment, we already have multiple levels of security. Even if you are accessing it from the office, you have to go through multiple servers before you actually touch our production server, right? That's part of our cloud security model. So in this case, what we did is we made it a little bit more, intense, where the connection from the person's home to the VDI, and from the VDI to this is all now with an extra level of security, right? So this way we enabled an environment where people could continue to do their job, especially people working in our cloud infrastructure team or our security operations team, right? These are the people that will access production.
Of course. I think that's most of the questions from my end, Prasad. Would you have any tips for organizations out there who are trying to keep their data secure and protect their customers' data, especially in a time when they're trying to also implement a remote workforce?
Yeah, so I think it all comes back to common sense security controls, right? Irrespective of whether you're working in a disaster mode like the way we are in right now, or in a normal business as usual mode, where a portion of your employees are going to be accessing company assets and company data from a remote location. Um, I would say there is no real difference in between the two models, right? If somebody is accessing sensitive information from outside the office, you already need to have all of the checks and balances to make sure that you are securing your employee data, your confidential data, your PII data, and your customer data, right? So come up with a set of controls which are not specific only to a BCP model, right? Because security is something where you're only as good as you keep the bad actors out, right? And bad actors will keep trying 1,000 times, and they have to be right only once to be able to gain access to your environment, right? So you need to have security controls which are independent of this current situation. Make sure that you fortify and come up with identification of what are your crown jewels that you want to protect, right? Example, if you're a product company, you want to protect your customer data, the integrity of your customer data. You want to protect the integrity of your employee data. You want to protect the IP. If you're a product company, there is going to be engineering assets that you develop, right? So fortify the access to that by now putting the extra levels of checks and balances, right? So here is where implementing single sign-on, right? Using SAML and single sign-on mechanisms where you have a single point of entry for the employee, right? So that you were asking me earlier about offboarding. So today, for us to do offboarding, I don't have to go to 45 different applications and offboard the employee. I go to one pane of glass and say this person is not an active employee anymore. And that pretty much decommissions the access from all of the applications. So centralizing the access mechanism so that you're now reducing the multiple points of failure and having the control at one particular point, right? Implementing tools using which you can do the monitoring of your security controls, right? Making sure that you have tools which alert you if there is an incident that happens, because many companies don't even know that they have been breached. If you read the industry statistics, it takes almost 7 to 8 months before companies realize. So Target, before they came out with the notification, they had been breached for 8 months. For 8 months, the bad actors had access to all the data, all the sensitive data, and they didn't know about it for 8 months. So having ways by which you can monitor and alert your security team and your infrastructure team saying that we are likely to have been breached, right? So that now you can put some checks and balances to make sure that you're stopping the bleeding and then putting additional this one. So take a proactive approach to security. Don't be a reactive, because if people are trying to now put a bunch of tools, it is only free money that you're giving away to the tool vendors. This needs to be security by design. This needs to be security by right from the ground up, where you need to think about these.
And what you're saying is basically also look at this as a long-term situation rather than just as a solution for the crisis itself. It needs to be done with the goal of having it there for a long time.
Exactly. And make it security by design, right? In the sense, any tool that you deploy, right, make sure that you have a secure transport layer to that, right? If there is a tool that you're evaluating and buying, if they don't have an HTTPS protocol with a digital certificate and a signed certificate, don't buy the tool, right? Why do you want to expose yourself to that? Evaluate the SOC 2 reports coming from them to make sure that they meet the security requirements of your organization. So many people take the SOC 2 report as a formality, but the wealth of information you get from a company's SOC 2 report, right, which says how they are controlling the access, how are they handling employees leaving and joining the business, right? How are they ensuring that the integrity of your data is being maintained? Is data encrypted at rest, right? And by that I mean, even if a bad actor tries to gain access, if the data is encrypted, all you're going to see is a bunch of what we call gobbledygook. You will not see the real data. It will all be completely, you cannot decipher it, right? So it is about putting these common sense controls independent of the disaster, is basically what I'm saying.
Thank you so much for joining me for this interview, Prasad. It was great having you here.
Thank you so much, Sanjana, and continue to be safe. I know it's this is a very difficult environment that we are all going through. So please continue to be safe, and for you and your family as well.
Thank you so much. Same to you, Prasad. Bye.
Thank you, Sanjana.